US-Israel split. Is it on the cards, Joe?
Unlikely.
Oh.
But stranger things have happened, Neil. And thanks for tuning in today.
That was it.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Until I see the divorce papers.
You want to see the papers? You got to see them paper, huh?
Yeah.
I was talking to about this with Joe, and he's like, "Man, never gonna happen." He didn't say that. He said, "Give me the evidence." So I've gathered it for today, but there were quite a few little tidbits this week that got, let's say, the far right of MAGA excited. Well, interested, let's say, in what was going on. So I'll cut straight to it. Here's an expose by someone who I think has more or less accurately summarized the week's developments in geopolitical intrigue between the US and Israel. Maybe we'll find fault in it, but I think it's an accurate summary. So Harrison Smith writes, let me get this straight. Israel bombed the shit out of everyone around them for over a year, which eliminated Iran's proxies, but pissed off everyone in the world. So now they have a brief window of opportunity to take out Iran, and if they don't, the backlash will be massive. But they can't actually defeat Iran without American troops on the ground, so they're frantically trying to get Trump to launch a war, with Netanyahu visiting DC 3 times in 3 months, with nothing to show for it but a bombing campaign against the Houthis. Despite being seemingly surrounded by militant Zionists, Trump's team has mostly pursued diplomatic solutions, even talking to Iran against the explicit wishes of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
A rift formed between pro-interventionists like Mike Waltz and anti-interventionists like Pete Hegseth. Hegseth then started facing immense media pressure, with his top anti-war aides being forced out of the Pentagon on flimsy accusations of leaking. Then Waltz added the editor of leftist magazine The Atlantic to a Signal chat where the Yemen war was being discussed. After the chats were leaked, Hegseth got the brunt of the blowback for some reason, and when he refused to resign over it, a second Signalgate scandal was launched to accuse him of sharing classified info to his wife. Waltz, meanwhile, appointed a former member of Israel's Ministry of Defense to oversee Iran and Israel policy on the National Security Council. Eventually, Netanyahu Eventually Waltz was forced to resign after he was discovered coordinating with Netanyahu to push a pro-war agenda in secret and against the orders of Trump. Then in the last few days, so this concerns last week, Trump has cut off communication with Netanyahu, dropped his requirement for Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel, cancelled Hegseth's trip to Israel, and even announced that the US is going to recognize a Palestinian state. Suddenly, it's been announced that multiple gigantic advanced nuclear production facilities have not only been discovered in Iran, but are known to be using material only used in nuclear weapons, not energy production. And Trump leaves for the Middle East on Monday. Oh boy. So, the first thing to claim about this about specifically concerning the last part, Trump has cut off communication with Netanyahu. So I was looking for, I saw the rumors on X, but what was the source of that? There is an Israeli media report. Here we go. Israel Hayom.com. I don't know about cutting off, but obviously leaders don't really ever cut off. But Trump sidelines Netanyahu in Mideast policy as relations deteriorate. And this is from Israel, and it's their sources. Who knows? But the byline, subheading, sources report the president is frustrated over the Israeli prime minister's alleged push for around military action. It's anonymous, but it generated a headline. Okay. It is the case that Hegseth is no longer going to Israel as he was scheduled to, but there's a plausible reason for that, which is that he's joining Trump instead, because Trump is going to the Mideast, to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE.
Mm-hmm.
Just on that, isn't that strange that he's just doing those? I mean, if you're going to the Middle East, wouldn't you also go to Israel if you're the American president?
No.
Okay, it happens. Didn't find anything about this dropping of a requirement that Saudi Arabia normalize relations with Israel for U.S. approval of civilian nuclear energy in Saudi Arabia, but
that
whatever.
Was in the
you did
Times of Israel. Yeah.
Oh, Israeli media again. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is like with these kind of allegations, you need it to come from the Israeli media in order to,
right?
You know, get like what would you call it? Like the verification status that it is an actual thing.
Okay. Good job. So, the next one is also Israeli media. This is kind of like the strongest claim there from the past week, that Trump is on the verge or seriously considering recognizing a Palestinian state. Jerusalem Post. But if you read it, though, it's a stretch. I mean, you wonder why would they want to actually create that headline if they had to stretching. So it's the Jerusalem Post has sources saying Trump is considering announcing the U.S. recognition of a Palestinian state. So if you scroll down, they actually give two opinions in the article. The first is indeed an anonymous source. Well, first it describes this what is happening. There's a summit hosted by Saudi Arabia next week. Trump is going to. And he is bigging it up with a very important announcement. But somebody is filling in the blanks and suggesting it's the recognition of Palestine. It's probably far more likely to do with trade, oil, the petrodollar. If you scroll down further, I don't see it yet. I want to find exactly where the Jerusalem Post is basing this. Okay, here we go. They've a subheader, will Trump recognize a Palestinian state? A Gulf diplomatic source told the media line, which is, I think it's Israeli media. If it's not, it's Jewish media in the US. Quote, Trump will issue a declaration regarding the state of Palestine. And there will be the establishment of a Palestinian state without the presence of Hamas.
Yeah.
I know. And you can see what they're conflating with. So this 2 paragraphs later, the source confirmed that economic agreements will certainly be present, but many of them have already been announced, and that we may witness the Gulf states being exempted from Trump's tariffs. That then 2 paragraphs later, they actually name someone, Ahmed Al-Ibrahim. He's a former Gulf diplomat. He said the opposite. I don't expect it to be about Palestine. One reason he gives is neither the Egyptian nor Jordanian leaders will be present there. They're obviously Palestine's neighbors and have most Palestinian refugees and so on. So it's like there's no substance to that sandwich, but the Jerusalem Post is generating headlines and lots of chatter on X with this kind of stuff, and it's been going on all week.
It's common knowledge. Common knowledge. It's reported widely in the media about the thing about Saudi Arabia. This is Reuters, which is pretty much the first stop for everybody. Gets their stuff from there. This is from May 8th. 3 days ago, under Trump, Saudi civil nuclear talks delinked from Israel recognition. Sources say that was under Biden. Saudi had to normalize the relationship with Israel before you could, go ahead with the Abraham Accords that Trump signed under his first administration, and part of that was the Saudis are looking for uranium, the right to
U.S. approval, I guess.
Yeah, under the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and all that kind of stuff, Saudi wants to start enriching uranium and stuff, build nuclear power plants or enriched uranium. And that was under Biden. Previously, that was no, you're not allowed to do that until you normalize relationships with Israel. And the Saudis didn't want to normalize relationships with Israel. Under the Abraham Accords, they were going to do that. That's what Trump was touting at the time, and people like Jordan B. Peterstein was super excited about that, and then blamed Iran and all the Muslims and stuff for that not happening. But it's actually the Saudis have literally. There's no chance that the Saudis will normalize relationship with Israel, at least in the short term, now after what Israel has done to Gaza. Obviously, they can't do that. If they couldn't do it before, they definitely can't do it now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, Saudi, all the Gulf states all agree. Everyone in the region agrees with whatever Saudi Arabia says, even Egypt, with a bigger population. The Saudi official line is two-state solution. I know it's unrealistic, but still, that's the official stance.
Yeah, which is bizarre that they keep on saying that, or anybody says that, or anybody has ever in the past 15 years. It's bizarre that anybody has actually said that. It's bizarre that they keep saying it. How they started saying it 15 years ago or whatever. Well, they started saying it a long time ago. But I mean, the fact that they've still been saying it over the past 15 years is just bizarre. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? Why don't you talk realistically? Like, why are you even saying that? I mean,
that's just the way.
Putin said it the other day.
Putin says it. China says it.
Putin said it to Abbas and
130 UN countries.
Yeah,
that's there.
I know, but it's ridiculous.
Based on 1967 borders.
Well, then destroy Israel first.
I suppose
you'll get together and destroy Israel.
I suppose
it's not going to happen otherwise.
I suppose the tack is to keep diplomatic pressure on Israel.
They don't care.
They don't care because they get everything so far. They get everything all the way where it matters, physically, materially, from the United States. That has changed, though. That's changed, obviously, since 9/11, because the US would have been far more considerate of this large group of countries in the world that has this position. We don't want to stray too far. And they've generally kind of eked their way into... And then Trump came along and just goes, okay, Jerusalem's now the capital of Israel. Boom. And by the way, we recognize the Golan Heights, which are post-1967 acquired as Israeli territory. And so it's kind of been busted wide open into a new normal in fairly recent years. So those guys are just, I suppose they're parroting the long-standing 50-year UN messaging back to Israel, no, it's two states. It's
but
it's not real politics, but
it's a farce that anybody would keep saying that. It's obviously not going to happen. It can't happen. So it's bizarre that anybody would continue to say that.
I know. Well, yeah.
I mean, what else are you going to do? Just tell your population, well, that's never going to happen. So you just might as well accept that all the Palestinians are going to die terrible and horrible deaths. Moving on.
Well, that's what's happening.
Well, yeah.
So you just ignore that as well. Don't even address that. Just pretend that's not happening as well. Pretend that there's going to be a two-state solution, and pretend that Israel isn't ethnically cleansing Gaza, is still in the process of doing that, is ramping things up to expel all the people of Gaza, and is expanding, continually has been and continues to expand settlements in the West Bank to make the West Bank into part of Israel.
Yeah.
So give me a two-state solution of that. Where's that going to happen?
Yeah.
Anybody? Putin? Anybody? Any world leader who talks about two-state solutions? Anybody? Explain that for me? No, can't. But you keep saying it.
Yeah.
Because they're not allowed to criticize Israel.
Right. Even if you're China or Russia.
Nobody.
That's some power. Yeah. Okay. That's the substance of it. That's basically the substance of a brewing US-Israel split. We've covered it. There are other little data points around the edges, like a New York Times column by Thomas Friedman, who came down hard on Netanyahu, but he kind of always has done because he's the Democrat lefty, and he's it was rare because he was agreeing with Trump. I hate Trump. I'm still hating Trump, but this is great. His tack on Israel,
not on Israel, on Netanyahu.
Yeah,
specifically, he loves Israel because he's a Jew.
Yes, but he wants a normal.
He doesn't like Netanyahu.
Yeah, he wants a reversal to how it was before.
Not quite so genocide-y.
Yeah,
government in Israel.
At least pretend you're not actually trying to land grab.
Just go back to slowly killing Palestinians bit by bit, and slowly denying them any kind of a possibility of a country of their own or any kind of state. Just do it slowly. Don't be doing it all at once in front of everybody.
It looks bad.
It just looks bad.
Another thing that's indirectly related, Trump declares an end to that Operation Rough Rider bombing of Yemen. So he's asked to clarify, so what does this mean for Israel? And he says this. It could just be another throwaway thing, or he blinked and didn't realize what he was saying. Maybe he'll say something different tomorrow.
The Houthis are backing down. We're seeing conflicting reports that they plan on continuing to attack Israel in support of Gaza. Does that change the equation?
No, I don't know about that, frankly, but I know one thing: they want nothing to do with us, and they've let that be known through all of their surrogates, and very strongly.
I.e., it's just between us and the Houthis.
Trump who?
I.e., Israel can defend itself, which it kind of was demonstrated. Israel made a statement saying such, well, we don't care. We'll do what we have to do. So Israel obliterated Sana's airport, civilian airport, and all the planes on it and everything, the hangar, the terminal, early last week, in the midst of this. Trump, I think it was the day before Trump said an end to US bombing of Yemen. Maybe Israel already got wind of that and said, well, watch this. Somehow,
apparently Trump doesn't know anything about anything as a general rule. Apparently he had, the Houthis very clearly signaled to or messaged the US through them and their surrogates, as he says, that they want nothing to do with America. And the guy says, well, but they said they're going to keep attacking Israel. I don't know anything about that. Nah.
But
my single steadfast ally, the only country in the world that I'm actually, that I'm willing to go above and beyond for, the Houthis have said they're going to continue to attack them. I don't know anything about that. Really?
Yeah, but we don't believe him, of course, because, like you just said, the entire world agrees
Everybody else knows.
to say two-state solution because you can't actually criticize Israel in real politic terms. So Trump knows that too. So,
Yeah, I don't know what Trump thinks. I don't know. I don't think Trump knows what he thinks on any given moment until somebody asks him a question, and then he makes something up, and then he changes his mind.
I never figured out if this happened before, during, or after, but yet another US jet fell off the USS Truman early last week. I wondered about the timing because I learned about this story first, and then I heard that Trump had said a halt to bombing Yemen. I mean, you could, if you're looking at it just sequentially, realpolitik, the US is like, Trump has decided this is too risky. Maybe with what I was talking about in the past shows when we talked about the Houthis hitting American ships, that American mythos is important to uphold here, and they're about to have footage of something happening.
There's only so many planes that can just fall off an aircraft carrier.
I know, and it's happened twice in a week.
Yeah, before people start going
3 times in 4 months.
Before people start really asking hard questions.
Two reports on here. The first one was NBC, and then CNN has some details. So at May 7th. May 7th was Wednesday. I think Trump declared an end to bombing Tuesday. So this happened afterwards. I'm not sure about that though. You would think, because you would think it would happen sequentially. Trump would pound in all caps and go, they broke the terms of our deal, and go back to bombing, you know. Second fighter jet crashes into the sea after landing failure on Harriet Truman. At least in this case, they had a more plausible reason for what happened. The aircraft's landing at high speed. That rope line couldn't help catch it, and it fell off the other end of the runway. If you go to the other one, though, the CNN report on it, I have some text. It's a bit tiny, but I embedded it there. CNN reported separately. So it's just described what happened Wednesday. And then they say separately, the Houthi rebel group, quote, took a shot at the Truman on Tuesday, despite Trump announcing an apparent ceasefire with the group hours earlier. And it's not clear whether the two incidents are related. I bet they are. And I'm wondering now if that was the last shot, and Trump said, right, shit, end it now.
Yeah.
Pull it.
Yeah. The first one was December, just leading up to Christmas, actually, last year. Again, all 3 of these events were all like,
Friendly fire.
Accident, basically. So Navy shot down friendly fire incident, was responding to Houthi threats. So it's like, I mean, it does sound a bit suspicious, you know what I mean? So the plane was out responding to Houthi threats, like, trying to shoot down Houthi missiles or doing whatever, trying to bomb, whatever, off an aircraft carrier, and it gets shot down. But not by the Houthis, right? By friendly fire.
Yeah.
That's the lesser of 2 evils, let's say.
Yeah.
It's not as bad. So that was the first one. Then you had in between we have other possible, or as part of this incident or other incidents that weren't reported. They seem to report US planes going down, but if any ship was actually hit directly and sunk a ship, they don't, because you can't accidentally, like a ship can't accidentally sink, a plane can't accidentally fall off a carrier. It can, have an arresting, like a landing issue, and then overshoots the deck and falls in, or it can be shot down by friendly fire because, that kind of thing. But how do you explain a whole ship going down, US destroyer, part of a US carrier battle group, accidentally shot itself in the arse and sank. No, that you can't get away with that. It
Well, didn't they try
accidentally hit an iceberg in the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Probably
No.
not. Accidentally
Wasn't there a
Ran
cargo
aground.
ran aground. No, huh?
Cargo ship.
Ran into a cargo ship. Ran into it in port. Yeah, that was one.
Yeah.
We talked about that one as well. So there's a bunch of those in between, but the three that were actually officially recognised as damage, like let's say as part of combat damage, I suppose, are the three planes that disappeared. And yeah, maybe that was that, along with the ones that we don't know about or aren't officially recognised, which possibly includes the sinking of a US ship. Yeah, that would probably that would ultimately be a win for the Houthis. Like, if as a result of that, Trump says, okay, he wants to parlay, okay, let's have a ceasefire here, because he's all about the ceasefires with Ukraine and Russia, and so he'd be good at negotiating a ceasefire.
And the Indians and the Pakis.
Yeah, well, it'd be good. Yeah, he's all about negotiating.
He's all about it.
Negotiating ceasefires. You'd think he'd be able to negotiate a ceasefire for himself, for America as well, not just for Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, or India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
He'd be good for that, negotiating a ceasefire between America and the Houthis, right?
Yeah, the skill should transfer.
Well, yeah, of course it does. Even better when you've got personal skin in the game type thing,
And when
You'd be
you're the
much
person-
quicker at that,
When you're the person who can actually do something about it,
Yeah,
and you're not just like negotiating things. It's like you actually are the one who can press the button that says stop.
Yeah, and you're the one suffering directly the consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be much more
Don't
Johnny on the spot about it.
does it, at the very least, doesn't it stand out that in the scenario where Israel has the United States by the nuts, Trump doesn't go all caps in his retreat painted as victory over the Houthis by saying, if you smack Israel again, though, we'll be right back.
Yeah.
That's
No.
left out.
No, of course, yeah.
It's
No, well, he said he
conspicuous by its absence.
It's not by his absence. He more or less said, he responded to the reporter in the clip you just played when the reporter asked him specifically that question. He didn't. He just said, "Don't know anything about that."
No comment or...
I don't know
What?
about that. But
Yeah.
the Houthis are still going to attack Israel. I don't know, but they don't want to do it with us, so we're all good. Like, fuck Israel, it can look after itself.
But see, that's the part he didn't say.
Yeah.
Well, it's in there, like
implied.
it's in there.
Okay, so in the middle of this, so I think Thursday, a little later on, Fox News drops this. And the source is Fox because the anonymous sources told Fox, and they reported probably all over the MAGA news in the evening. Satellite images reveal alleged secret Iranian nuclear weapons facility. Has reportedly been in operation for more than a decade. And we didn't know about it till now. We just found it thanks to, hang on, scroll down. What do they say? Do they even say, actually, it would be nice if they just said Israeli sources, but
It's bombed.
No, it was within the facility, I think.
An opposition
an
group.
opposition.
So,
But
yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's the MEK
So Israeli.
via Israel.
So Israeli.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says it was previously undisclosed on raising fresh concerns about ongoing negotiations, blah, blah.
Yeah, according to the National Council of Resistance of Iran, that's the renamed MEK.
Yeah.
The weird
The
commie slash monarchist
been an
government in waiting.
It's been in operation for more than a decade, so they've made a bomb at this point, right?
No,
so
no, they're still they're
weeks?
still 2 weeks
it's
away.
still 2 weeks, yeah. Damn, that 2 weeks.
A 2 week window.
Like Groundhog Day for the poor Iranians, like they get up every day and it's like, okay, look, today they get up and go, okay, look, it's going to be 2 weeks. We can see it. We've been putting in all this work for like 20 years. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the bomb. They wake up the next day and they go, alarm clock goes off, beep, beep, beep. All right, 2 weeks from today, it's going to happen. And that's BB, remotely talking into their heads, projecting himself into their head saying 2 weeks, still 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
He's been saying this since 1995, literally 30 years. 2 weeks. How does anybody believe these people? Yeah, Trump is... Trump's it's becoming more clear to me anyway now that Trump isn't just using strategic ambiguity in all of his dealings with other countries and all that kind of stuff. Trump actually is strategic ambiguity.
Yeah.
He's not doing it, he is it. He is like the definition in the dictionary of strategic ambiguity just says, see Donald Trump. It's like, it's not that he's really good at it, it's that he is it. He doesn't try. He doesn't know that he's being strategically ambiguous.
Yeah. Oh,
That's just who he is. And everybody trying to figure him out are going, holy fuck, this guy, like, what is he like? Is he actually saying that he doesn't know, or does he not actually know? Maybe he's being really smart. No, he's not really that smart. He's just, it's how he's run his whole life, you know. He just literally, I think his brain just kind of like loops, you know, it like shuts off and restarts every minute, basically. And he, whatever comes to mind in that moment is the truth, you know.
Yeah.
And then if someone else asks him the same question an hour later, he'll say something else.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's being deceitful. It's like literally that that thing that he said an hour ago, that wasn't me. I wasn't there. I wasn't actually there when that was said. That wasn't my brain. That was, well, it was my brain, but it wasn't me in there. It was somebody else.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. What he tweets on a Tuesday is the opposite to the Wednesday. 1 minute it's Zelensky's fault, he's holding shit up. The next minute it's Putin's. The next minute it's more sanctions on Russia. The next minute he takes credit for something that develops over there between those parties, and he goes, awesome, we've been up all night working on this. And then one of the parties over there goes, never even had any contact from him. Don't know what he's talking about.
Right. He says, yeah, but I had a conversation with you in my head, so that's as good as it happened.
But yes, it's bizarro, but there is some consistency to it. So here's CNN today, right now, ongoing in Oman, is another round of talks between Witkoff, at least, maybe someone else from State Department, and Iranian officials. That's not nothing, because it's kind of like North Korea until Trump turned up. There was no contact. Now there's some.
The guy on the left is a self-hating Jew, according to Netanyahu.
Did he say that?
No, but he's thinking it.
He's thinking
He's one of those American Jews that isn't on board. Yeah, I think Trump in general. Trump has a general idea, a very vague general idea of what he wants to do, and that's where it ends.
Yeah,
it never goes beyond that, except in a specific moment where he has to make a decision, and then he just makes a decision.
Yeah,
he thinks, does that fit with my vague general idea about how things should go? Which obviously changes based on new information that come. He's a very dynamic person, Trump. You know,
not bad for 80.
Yeah, or he's seen it. He's very dynamic. He doesn't have a plan. It's very, very open. General, vague idea, catchphrases, words. And then as new information comes in, he just makes a decision in the moment.
So he's mastered the art of non-anticipation.
Yeah.
You could say.
Yeah. But and it's not only as new information comes in, he makes a decision. It's as new partial information comes in, he makes a decision. And then, you know, on partial information, he'll make a definite decision and tell everybody about it. And then a couple of days later, more information will come in, and then that changes it, and they tell them something else. And as long as it all fits with his, if it feels good, you know, if it feels MAGA, then
yeah,
let's just go with it.
There's a great example of it in another topic in what happened in Kiev this week. I'll just skip ahead. The Euro boys meet Zelensky in Kiev, right?
Yep.
And issue an ultimatum, joint ultimatum. Putin, you've like
1 day, 2 days,
a few days to agree to a 30-day ceasefire, or else more sanctions, usual shite. And Trump, they say they called Trump, and he said, yes, totally, I'm totally on board, which is totally against what he's been telling the Russians about getting to the root of the problem. This won't be solved just like that. Yeah. But it's like, let's give Donald Trump a call and see what he thinks. That's great.
Yeah,
I agree, but it undermines what he's actually telling the Russians.
Yeah. He probably heard the word ceasefire and was like, yeah, Yeah, ceasefire. That's great. That's exactly what I want. Let's go forward with it.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
long as I can say that I was the one who did it. As long as the credit goes to me, then I'm all for it. Ceasefire, I'm your man. What do you want? Have you sorted ceasefire? Okay, I'm taking that one. but we negotiated. Shut up. Okay, talk to the press. Tell them what I did.
Like the way he single-handedly destroyed ISIS in Syria.
Yeah, and how he, retroactively, single-handedly won the Second World War. Retrospectively, or I don't know, he projected himself into the past and won the Second World War.
And would be a great pope.
And he would also be the best pope.
And
the most tremendous
And
pope.
what happens? An American pope.
Shows you.
Is that the Trump effect or what?
Yeah. Pull some strings.
That is bizarre. Like, I don't know. I doubt. In theory, there's no geopolitics that goes into it, but there is a kind of apparently a tacit understanding in the Vatican in modern times that the reason they have not had an American one so far is because of the overwhelming concentration of American power in the world post World War II.
Yep.
So they tend to avoid North America generally. This year's happens to be an American, which is okay. It's just interesting. He is a curious American, though. He's probably spent most of his life outside the US.
Yeah.
Just staying with that Middle East topic, the story died on the vine, but there have been a couple of updates. The busted Iran terror plot in the UK. A couple of updates. Which one will I go with? The BBC has two stories. Well, the first one is minor. A fifth person's been arrested in the terror plot, but the main revelation this week was that the target of said plot was to be the Israeli embassy in London.
Dun dun dun.
That just stinks to high heaven, of course. Dubious, to say the least.
Dum dum dum.
I saw it was being reported, at least when I was reading about it on Sky News, that they were saying that they just said that media outlets were reporting that it was the Israeli embassy before any
police statement or
before
official.
anything official.
Yeah, that's always a tell.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone find that out? Because the real perps let them know.
And then who was it? The someone in Iran. What's his name? So he goes and okay. So there we go. Saeed Arachi. I don't know how to say that. He is the. Let me see if I can get his thing on here. He is the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so he goes on to say that we are seeing stories in the media that Iranian nationals are allegedly involved in a supposed plot to target the Israeli embassy. Iran, in no uncertain terms, categorically rejects any involvement. They've urged the UK to engage with them to assist in any, probing into the allegations. The timing and lack of engagement suggest that something is amiss. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the premise is bonkers. It'll never work either because this is kind of post 9/11 GWAT stuff that maybe worked then, but now they're asking people to remember the echoes of the war on terror and associate Iran with it after Iran has twice sent barrages of high-tech missiles screaming into Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why the fuck would they need to target an embassy sneakily over there when they can just hit Israel directly, which they've been doing on at least 2 or 3 occasions at this point?
Yeah. Why would they offer, succor to Israel by attacking a synagogue in the UK, in London or wherever? and have the world condemn them for shooting innocent Jews in a synagogue. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's not 1994, you know. But it just shows the limits of their
what
they can do at this point.
And then, it's working across the board for Trump. There's US-China talks, along with the US-Iran talks, are progressing. US-China talks to diffuse trade row resumed in Geneva today.
Well, is that a win for Trump? We've been mocking him for a month because we're like, we're waiting for that phone call, and it never came. But apparently someone did.
Well, this is lower. This isn't Trump, but senior US and Chinese officials met again on Sunday today in Geneva. The headline on that: neither side commented on Saturday about the substance of the discussions nor signified any specific progress. But later, US President Donald Trump gave a positive reading, surprise, surprise, of the talk, saying the two sides had negotiated a total reset in a friendly but constructive manner.
I call that a win.
It's a total reset, so all the tariffs are going away.
It's a great reset.
And it was all a big bluff, like everybody suspected.
I mean, did he get what he wanted, or is he on the way to great? Look, all caps, great progress made. I mean,
yeah, total reset.
Is that what it was for? The whole thing, Liberation Day, great announcement, just to bring it to this.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We're going to have Trump.
That was the point.
We're going to have Trump fatigue by the end of 4 years.
Nobody's going to believe him. Well, I mean, they'll just have to wait, and you can't believe anything he says. You just have to wait and see what actually happens.
See what pans out,
and then go and see how Trump can, twist it into a win, winning bigly across the board.
There's a detail in the report. I'm not sure if Reuters carried it, but The Guardian did. Trump has suggested the discussions were initiated by China. China made the call. I told you they would make the call. Beijing said the US requested the discussion that China's policy of opposing US tariffs has not changed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but okay, so the US maybe said, hey, we want a phone call, but it was China that ended up picking up the phone. Therefore,
China made the call.
China made the call.
No way around it. Trump's winning across the board.
Bigly.
Meanwhile, Russian media reports Russian exports to the US surged 50% in April.
From
Trump effect? That's Russia to US.
From
sanctions.
Surged 50%.
Yeah. It's
from $10 to $15.
It's very small. It is very small, but still, that's a jump. But the most interesting trade news this week is I didn't figure out. It wasn't clear from the Financial Times, but I bet it's the case with the US too, that China's exports rose 8%. I think that's global exports rose 8% alone. It's like a sharpest rise in 3 years or something in the last month. Paywall. Whatever. That's easily discoverable. So it's either having a paradoxical effect, Trump's embargo, or it's not really being applied, or it hasn't come into effect yet.
Well, it was probably that's probably delayed as well. Bumper April exports, maybe. Yeah, well, April. I think that's explained by people in mainly Americans, but maybe some other countries, but mainly Americans, bulk buying large quantities of stock before any tariffs come in.
Okay,
so it's probably only a blip, That's what people were doing. So that's not a paradoxical effect; it's a direct effect of Trump's threatened tariffs, like
a hoarding effect ahead of a scarcity,
a bulk buying,
fear of scarcity. Yeah. So we called it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks, whatever, that India and Pakistan would not have a war; it would just blow away.
Yeah,
but they did. We had a wee war. Does that count? That's them having a war, the India-Pakistan war of 2025.
Well, it's like, this might be a spicy way of saying it, but it's that part of the world. It's a shit war.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's no good. You're expecting more.
Yeah. It's just kind of like
Hang on a second now.
throw some stuff and-
before you get all like Western and racist, white boy. Report here says India seems to have used 24 precision-guided missile strikes, including British Galp cruise missiles and French Hammer precision-guided munitions on those 9 terrorist training grounds they claim to have hit and killed 80 terrorists. Pakistan claims to have shot down 5 Indian jets, including 3 French-made Rafales and 2 Russian ones, a Su-30 and a MiG-29, on Indian territory. And the Pakistanis have some pretty awesome Chinese fighter jets with some pretty awesome munitions. So that's the reason it ended short, because they have some pretty high-tech capabilities to
Who, the Pakistanis?
cause a lot of damage, both of them to each other.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course. Well, the shooting down of the 5 planes is kind of like, if you believe the claim by the Pakistani military, they basically had the first. The guy was claiming it was going to go down in history as it was the first time it had ever happened, according to him. That basically, fighter jets from both of them all kind of like just got up in the air and had a big fight with each other and fired missiles at each other, and then a bunch of them fell down. Not the missiles, but a bunch of the planes fell down. So he was saying there was something like the Indians put up 60, and the Pakistanis put up 40. In different groups. And they all kind of like just went at it, shot some missiles at each other, and then saw what happened, then ran away. And as a result, five Indian jets were shot down, and probably maybe 1 or 2 Pakistani jets or something like that. But none of these countries have any. It would be funny, it would be funny. Not only, I mean, you don't want to be too racist or whatever, or too stereotypical. Not racist, but stereotypical, because you don't like to do that on the show. But except in some cases. But neither of those countries have. First of all, neither of those countries have any experience of war, of actual combat, and that's a massive difference, between a country that has experience of conflict, like Russia, for example, has a lot of experience of actual war right now, but most countries don't have any experience of that, and that's why they're all kind of chicken shit. They're realistic enough, like European countries, and even the Americans, don't really have much experience of war with peer competitors, let alone the only experience any country around the world these days really has of war is either very low intensity conflict, where it's just like guys with guns shooting at each other, or shooting at terrorists, or that kind of thing, or maybe something a little bit bigger, but very
standoff,
very one-sided, whereas like America would just bomb some country and the country doesn't shoot back, so it's like it's a very safe quote unquote war, but it's not an actual war, and it doesn't give you the experience of actual combat because you haven't actually been shot at, which is really the most important thing in any kind of war, is that you've been shot at. If you haven't been shot at, then you don't know shit, basically, right?
Yeah.
Of course, America has some experience of that with the Iraqis, but that was more like insurgency and kind of urban warfare type thing, and it was quite limited as well. But in terms of war against a kind of peer competitor, let's say, who can marshal significant forces against you, none of them really have any experience, and much less Pakistan and India. And then just the nature of the two countries, I suppose, in terms of their, I don't know how you'd characterize them, would probably need someone who's more in-depth knowledge of the Pakistani and Indian mentality and stuff. But they're
Adam's your man.
You could call them a bit, maybe a little bit, I don't know, hysterical to some extent, whatever, and that might translate emotional. That might translate over to how they wage war. Hence, like, let's put all our planes up and shoot at each other in a big dogfight and see what happens. That's not probably the way a lot of other countries would go about that kind of a thing. And also, like this, I don't know if you can you play videos if I just send them to you, Scotty? Like that one? I just sent it as an MP4. This is them firing off, I think it's the Pakistanis firing off a MLRS, So that's I think they might have the button. They've got a cable on the left there. They've got an extension cable, seems to be running over to the MLRS. So maybe there's a little desk or something there. So maybe they're pushing a button, trying to get it to work, So go ahead and play it. We'll see.
आज 10 मई
Yay! Oh, nothing happened.
आज 10 मई
Oh.
05
Try again, lads.
Push it again.
F1 का फायर
Yeah! You got it.
I'm running away. Fights are like, what the fuck has just happened? Hey, we fired one.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
Oh, another one.
Jeez. But when the first one went off, a few of them in the background kind of like grabbed each other and, kinda, like,
and ran away a bit.
and tried to get out of there, you know. So that's an example of
Yo. Where are we firing? Not sure. India's that way, though.
going in that direction, unfortunately.
And then they're legging it over because they have to. Well, they understand that at least. You've got to get the vehicle out of there or it can be pinpointed.
Yeah, probably not though. Like, but that's just one example, obviously. But you know, it's just interesting that, and so it's probably better that if Trump, to whatever extent Trump did have an influence over this, and there's some suggestion that it was that the Trump administration put pressure on the Pakistanis to sign an agreement. You know, they are on the. Yeah, obviously they're a smaller country, smaller population, they have a significant army, obviously, and that kind of stuff. But you know, the Indians would be a bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Indians, I think. Well, it's hard to say, but I think the Indians have the upper hand. Would have the upper hand.
Oh yeah,
for different reasons.
they're bigger. I mean, in a war of attrition, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the Indians actually fired. I think one of the last things they did, the Indians fired a couple of missiles at an underground base that was storing. A missile base that was also had nukes, so they were kind of signaling their intention to up the ante significantly. Did you
see the rumor that Pakistan tested a nuke underground?
No,
I didn't look further into it.
There's an awful lot of fakes coming out of it as well. You know,
well, there was
in terms of videos and stuff as well.
A quake magnitude 4 on the Richter scale.
Yeah,
but not an earthquake.
Yeah. But that it's good. There's obviously lots of reasons why it's good that those two have decided to back down. But one of them being, at least, you know, that would be personal to me is having to wade through the massive amount of fakes and fake photographs and photoshopped images and stuff and videos that the Pakistanis and Indians both immediately showed proclivity to disseminate as soon as anything started. Way worse than Ukraine and Russia, you know. So yeah, I wouldn't want to have to deal with that. So I'm glad they didn't go there.
I saw 2 closing statements from Pakistan's Prime Minister. One of them is, it looks like a faithful translation. So he's speaking in Pashto, I'm not sure what language. I think in their Congress or Parliament, saying we have to accept. He didn't say use the D word, defeat, but we need to wrap this up now. I'm sorry, but we can't actually take this further. Very dejected, you know. A ceasefire is on the table. Sorry, guys, but no.
Pakistani.
Yeah, but then he's also giving a press statement. Maybe a day later. This one kind of went viral on X. Translated English subs. Total victory. India capitulated.
Of course, yeah.
It's gonna.
Yeah, everybody claims victory. Well, if Trump can do it, then so can everybody else, right?
They're all learning the art of strategic ambiguity.
But the source of this, nobody there hasn't been much discussion about the actual source of it, of why they kicked off. Anybody?
The largely omitted.
The terror attack.
Mm-hmm.
That was the provocation, but you're thinking the background issue is water.
Well, water was a response, is part of it, but obviously the terror attack against Indians in Jammu, anyway, in that disputed area that they share a border with north of India, that was the initial casus belli, let's say.
Yeah.
So what was going on there?
Previously unknown terror group from somewhere in Pakistan crosses over multiple gunmen organized, know who they're targeting. Hindu, Indian tourists. Massacre, 26 dead. Some get away, some are stopped, some are shot. And the super dodgy part is the previously unknown. Like the splinter, it split off from another group that's kind of more normalized now and has a political party.
Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Yes.
No, the same.
Okay, it's still terrorists. Okay.
It's the same. No, and that group isn't previously unknown. I mean, they're pretty much the same thing. I mean, you can assume that it's the same grouping, right? And Lashkar-e-Taiba goes back a long way, like, you know.
I just read previously unknown in the first reports of it when it happened.
Yeah, but if you look at
just as if someone was trying to distance it, say it's not quite that group. It's
but you can assume from that that's just, you know, you're going to take that at face value, like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, they used to be associated with this group, but they're doing the same things that group's always done. So it's obviously the same group, but it's the same agenda. So you basically look at Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is part of the whole war on terror, basically. Like they were the ones behind the Delhi bombings, the Mumbai train bombings, 2014, Delhi bombing 2005, Mumbai train bombings 2014, the big Mumbai attacks in 2008 that you mentioned last week. What was his name?
Or the American who was wrapped up in it.
That's all.
David something Lee.
Yeah. David Headley. A Pakistani American DEA informer. So like when you know that history of Lashkar-e-Taiba, and then you see Lashkar-e-Taiba more or less carrying this attack that then tries to provoke or goes some way to provoking a war between
India and Pakistan.
You got to look at it all in that context, right?
Yeah.
In the broader context.
The day after Vance has been in New Delhi with Modi.
Yes, exactly. And who's pulling the strings here, you know? I mean, those and we played it on last week's show, the
defense minister.
The Pakistani defense minister asked, when he was asked about this group who carried out the terror attack, he said, well, that's just a legacy of us. We what did he say?
We've been doing the West dirty work since they wanted us to turn against the Soviet Union, and then after 9/11 the war on terror. Right. And the presenter was like, he basically said, yes, it's our terror group. Out of our hands, though. Sorry. Call London or Washington for more. And she's like, but getting back to the specific incident.
Right. So that group, obviously, Lashkar-e-Taiba and, you know, others, and we know many other groups around the world, Al-Qaeda, all that kind of stuff, all these terror groups, all, you know, financed, trained and funded by, in one way or another, by Western powers, American intelligence, British intelligence in particular, in the Middle East. I mean, we know what the war on terror was actually for, the whole point of the war on terror, and the whole point of terrorists, and the whole point of terrorism, the whole reason for Al-Qaeda. What Al-Qaeda's purpose was, Al-Qaeda being created effectively by the West, you know, indirectly via the Saudis, by you know, madrasas, and, you know, building up groupings of radical jihadi types to do their geopolitical to carry their geopolitical aims, basically. So Lashkar-e-Taiba is exactly one of those. And then you have this group trying to basically provoking a war between India and China, or India and Pakistan. So it's all in that context. You don't just see it in isolation, right?
Yeah.
So who benefits?
The globalists.
Thanks, Alex.
The transatlanticists.
Yeah, well, it suggests that kind of in line with the Israelis attempting to throwback Israelis attempting to have Iran or have a false flag attack, let's say, or put up some paid Iranians or something like that to attack a synagogue. That's old school war on terror, you know, starting from pre 9/11, but particularly since 9/11. And Lashkar-e-Taiba is in the same mold. So, and it didn't work. Under a different administration, if it was someone other than Trump, it was Biden or whoever else, still the deep state running the show, let's say, there probably wouldn't have been there may not have been such a urgency to bring the two to push for a ceasefire and have a ceasefire. It might have been allowed to continue on, and to get worse, But it all fits with basically war and terror, Iraq, control of the Middle East is for Israel, Afghanistan to keep back China to land themselves in the middle of that particular part of Central Asia to push back China's One Belt, One Road initiatives, all this kind of stuff. And of course, Trump is still, as much as he's having very good conversations and having a nice reset with China, all that kind of stuff, he wants to wrap up Russia-Ukraine kind of thing and put all that behind him so that they can, and they've said it specifically, Hegseth and Rubio and also and others have all said that they want to pivot towards China. What does that mean? You know what I mean? I mean, again, it's Trump's uber ambiguity, let's say, but to what extent is the neoliberal formula for world domination via terrorism and coups and all that kind of stuff, to what extent is that still functioning under the Trump administration?
Yeah, but you're not suggesting Trump gets a proposal on his desk to send terrorists into...
No, it suggests...
It happens off the books, right?
Of course, it always did.
Yeah.
The White House, any White House or any State Department, unless you were a special part of the State Department, you didn't get to know about any of that. Your job is to react to that. Your job is to react to the CIA's terrorist proxies causing havoc or mayhem in any particular part of the world. You're down the line type thing in terms of need to know about that kind of thing,
Yeah. Reset world events and you react to them.
Yeah, exactly. So to what extent is that still operating,
Oh, big time.
Well, you'd see it by whether or not it manifests or how it manifests,
Yeah.
And of course the Israelis would be front and center because this, there's a whole geopolitical thing. There's again, it depends to what extent this is still an issue. This has been, like we talked about this before, the China's One Belt, One Road and the Eurasian integration and all that kind of stuff was an existential threat or seen as an existential threat in potential in the 90s by the West, to the extent that they launched a war on terror in order to prevent Eurasian integration under Chinese and Russian, particularly, and Iranian auspices from occurring before any of those three countries were even in a position to do it, but they foresaw that they would be able to do it, and they have made that progress towards doing that. Since then, a lot of progress doing that, and all along, up until Trump, let's say, they have been, pushing back against them and largely thwarting, well, to some extent, pushing back against it. It's kind of like trying to push back the tide, but they've been continuing to put the effort in to try and do that. So
what you're saying is that this under a different administration could have been stoked a bit more, prolonged a bit more, all because it is part of a more long-standing decision to contain China. Again, seeing China as the main focus, as the big bad at the end of the season, so to say. And so you can see where things are wrapping up on one part of the world, then you need to pivot, but in order to pivot properly, in order to prevent, India and Pakistan and China from all becoming really good friends, you have to be able to stoke the division enough in order to create the reality on the ground necessary in order to further exploit it later on.
Yeah, well,
something like that.
Yeah, that's what they've been doing for a long time. The question is, to what extent is that still going on, or to what extent can that still continue in an effective way under Trump. And is Trump, to what extent is Trump on board with that? To what extent was Trump willing to continue to use those kind of policies to achieve his aims? Because his aim of, dominating China is the same aim that his enemies, let's say in the deep state, have. He just apparently has a different idea of how to go about doing it. But
so it very well could have been.
If it works.
So it could have been like on Monday, they were like, okay, Trump, we've got this idea here. Here's what we think. Here's what we're planning. And he's like, yeah, do it. Because he can see that that's how he wants to, it fits in, like what you were saying. It kind of fits his MAGA in the moment. And then he realizes later on when things start actually blowing up, then he sees like, oh, me being the ceasefire king,
that's better.
That's even better for my image as MAGA, MAGA.
Right. Which would kind of fit, and it's very hard to give him any credit for any of this, whether or not he's just doing it all flying by the seat of his pants, or whether he's actually a genius mastermind, which is a lot of people have trouble trying to work out which is which, because you can actually ascribe either to him based on what's going on, but it's whether or not he actually intends it, or whether he's just extremely lucky, or whether he's just got some vague general idea about, like, for example, I'm going to tariff China 100,000,000%, and everybody's like, oh no, you'll blow up the world economy and we'll all die. And he says, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And then eventually, supposedly somehow it happens that China comes to the table and he says, okay, I'm removing the tariffs and it's all good now. And then he's like, but then the next one is, oh, let's provoke a war with China. Let's provoke a war with India and Pakistan. Let's get that going. People go, oh, holy shit, those are two nuclear armed powers. It's going to blow up the world. And then Trump goes, no, I'll stop it now. So he kind of like allows the deep state to do their thing, kind of thing. But then he reels it in afterwards, or he kind of intercedes in ways that another administration under the deep state wouldn't have done. It's all a bit fucked up. Like,
there's a reality where this shit happens. It's vast, it's networked, it's ultra deceptive, dark. It's connected with organized crime, networks and informants. Remember, Al Qaeda meant the database. It was literally a network of fucking criminals. So it's there. It's a structural reality of this earth with so many psychos and other character fucked up people on it. It's a reality. So you're just going to have to work within it, try to use it, leverage it. Don't respond here, but maybe do there. I mean, if Putin responded to every Islamist terror attack that blew up a metro in St. Petersburg, Russia would have gone through 10 wars by now, but you don't.
Right.
You have to roll with them, take the punches sometimes, flip them around into useful. At one point, I mean, stuff happens like in his first term, Putin announced it, and then Trump made a big, deserved sort of grandstanding that the U.S. administration, so the White House, got wind of some shit that was about to go down, a terror attack maybe on a metro line in Russia, and told Putin.
Yeah.
He tells FSB, they have cameras rolling, they do a raid, they bust. It's a real thing. They got them weapons, everything, plot, dusted. I want to publicly thank the United States. So that shit's going on all the time. When you catch wind of it, you go, well, will I use this? This would be if I give him a favor, that could be useful for... It's kind of like a currency. It's a traded... in this sick world, it's a commodity. Goes on all the time. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? If you catch it beforehand, you can leverage it.
Right. Like, relevant to this is, just throw that one up there, Scotty, is as part of kind of China's One Belt, One Road kind of thing, the Chinese-Pakistan economic corridor, which is basically a way for China to, and they've had a base on the Gulf, on the Persian Gulf, basically on the Gulf of Oman, the Arabian Sea, on the south coast of Pakistan, very close to the Iranian border. The Chinese have had a base there, a port, for quite a long time, and so Pakistan is important to the Chinese for their whole idea of one belt, one road, Eurasian integration, but in particular Pakistan. It's not just Eurasian integration, let's say, the broad scheme of things. But if you just go to that link, Scotty, you'll see it. It's Google Maps. That's Gwadar down there, so you see Pakistan. So if you zoom in a little bit, can you? You've got, that's good. That's down there basically on the south coast of Pakistan, and that's a Chinese port, and the Chinese have had that for, I'm not sure how long, but quite a while. The reason it's important that the Chinese is they developed that, have developed that as a way to funnel oil, in particular oil and gas, let's say, or oil, and other products from energy products from the Middle East to China, which, as you can see, is just up in the top right there. So you go up through Pakistan and over into, and maybe not through. It's interesting if you see, going over there a little bit, just there, you can see. Zoom out a little bit. Is that a satellite image? No, it's maps. Anyway, you have the two dotted lines there at Jammu and Kashmir, the disputed area. You've got Pakistan on the left, India is below. They both share a border with that area, disputed area. But just above it, there are that little thin piece of land below Tajikistan. That's part of Afghanistan. Afghanistan going over and meeting up with China there. Because Jammu and Kashmir is this disputed area, so it's unstable. Normally, from that port down on the south coast of Pakistan, Iranian oil, etc., will be funneled into China overland. But originally, it would have gone. The idea was pre 9/11, let's say. The idea was that it would go through Afghanistan, from Iran through Afghanistan and through that corridor. But then whenever America planted itself in the middle of Afghanistan, the Chinese developed this port in the south of Pakistan. But then they still have to find a way, and they can't find a way but through that. But again, it's interesting that this disputed territory is in the way, basically. There's these disputed territories or entire land masses, entire states that are were invaded and occupied by America, all with the purpose clearly of impeding Chinese outward Western expansion or Chinese access to the Middle East. Because that port in the south, Gwadar in the south of Pakistan, is important for China as an alternative to having to ship all of its oil. If you just scroll out and you can see come out a little bit, you can see they would have to go around and through the Malacca Straits there, and there's been many American war games, etc., or policies that have been developed, or plans developed to blockade China, basically energy blockade, but also basically shipping blockade of China, because all of China's exports and imports going from China to westwards and coming from the west, from the Middle East, for example, and from anywhere else in the west, have to go through the Malacca Straits via boat. And the Americans have long planned or played out kind of war games or plans to blockade the Malacca Straits to cut off China, basically. So China, in response, developed this port in the south of Pakistan as a way to go, well, fuck you, we'll just go over land then. So, but if Pakistan were to be kind of destabilized or blown up or whatever, then that would. So it's not that they would necessarily do that, but this was the plan. Like, this is the last 25 years of neoliberal empire building and securing of empire. This is all part of everything we've seen over the past 20, 25 years, pre 9/11, post 9/11. A lot of the action, American military projection of their power around the world, and terror attacks and terrorist groups, etc., showing up here, there, and everywhere, have by and large all been for the purpose of securing American control and securing the American empire and American hegemony in the world in the face of China and Russia. So this particular incident can't be, I think, divorced in India and Pakistan, and then the war that never was, or that happened but then went away, can't really be divorced from that. And also, this is where Israel and America, and especially the neoliberal types, the warmongers, the deep states, and the Israelis kind of are bedfellows, close bedfellows, and have been for a long time, because obviously Chinese expansion westwards and Eurasian integration, particularly if it incorporates Iran becomes, the primary, which it is right now, the primary supplier of oil, for example, to China to fuel China's industry. If China was to expand westwards and take in, with railways and roads and all that kind of stuff across Eurasia there, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran into the Middle East, and the whole place was to be developed in the way that China and Russia envision. Well, Israel, not only America would suffer in that situation, like, because we've said before, Eurasia, the landmass of Eurasia has 80% of the world's population, 80% of the world's resources. Not only would American hegemony be in trouble, but Israel, as a little microcosm of the American empire in the Middle East, would have to very quickly wake up and smell the coffee, and no longer be the exceptional nation or the chosen people, and would have to take its rightful place as a shitty little country in the Middle East, compared to, for example, Iran as a resource behemoth. And so there have been repeated and many attempts by the Americans with the Israelis, between America and Israel and the West, I suppose, and as it's called in terms of France, the UK. They all have skin in that game as well, but they need to control the Middle East and keep the Middle East the way it is, and the way the Middle East is, or has been and is today still, although it may be changing, is that all of the countries in the Middle East that should rightfully be powerful countries in the Middle East and making their own decisions that are in the interest of the populations of those countries in the Middle East in general, and naturally maybe collaborate with further eastwards with the Stans and Pakistan and India and China. Everything they've done has been to prevent all that from happening, prevent any kind of integration there, or any kind of true sovereignty amongst a lot of those nations. And that's the way it can all be interpreted or seen through that lens, basically. Why Iran, 80 million people, massive natural resources, oil and gas, it's as big and as resourceful as Saudi Arabia. Why is it not
as rich?
And why does it not have the same status in the world? Why is it not
eternal pariah?
Yeah, why is it an international pariah? Why is Iraq kind of like dysfunctional and in ruins? Why is Syria being run right now by ISIS head choppers? Why is Lebanon and Hezbollah being bombed and taken out of the picture?
Why was Libya destroyed?
Why was Libya destroyed? All of it was designed to maintain Western control over the Middle East, and Israel is front and center in that effort. So it certainly doesn't like it. It certainly is on the same page as the Americans, at least. I don't even know. This is why we were asking that question earlier. I don't know if Trump has the same agenda, but certainly before Trump, Israel is still on the same page as that American neoliberal empire building, empire securing agenda, i.e. keeping everything the way it is and keeping China and Russia and Iran down and back. So Israel has as much skin in that game as America does, as America had. Is that changing under Trump? Sometimes it seems to be. Sometimes you wonder. Don't know what Trump's going to do because he's Captain Ambiguous. So,
Captain Ambiguous.
Yeah, Captain America, Captain Ambiguous. So, yeah.
That's a great summary there. I think it
hasn't changed, That's been bread and butter for the past 20 years, and it hasn't changed. You have to always keep that in mind,
I will go further. It's interesting to analyze World War II from
We can go back to them as well.
the Russian perspective. If you look at the 30 world leaders who had the balls to actually ignore all the pressure not to go to Moscow last week for the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, the overwhelming majority were from Central Asia or Asia, period. And why? You're like, are they just there because Putin clicked his fingers and they all have to kowtow to Moscow? No, their grandparents died in that war. It was a Eurasian war. It was a Eurasian war against the transatlanticist neoliberal West. You could make the case that it was essentially the same massive, in the biggest terms, geopolitical struggle. The target was Asia. Who bore the worst of it? Russia, and everything connecting Russia all the way to China from the other side, from Japan. Whether Hitler and the Japanese thought of it in the same way and arranged to tackle the problem in Eurasia the same way, it doesn't matter. The results were the same or similar. So Brzezinski in the 90s talks about the arc of instability going from the Middle East right across Russia's or the former Soviet Union's underbelly into Western China, the arc of instability. He's talking about it like this is just going to happen. But he knows it's going to happen because he helped.
Yeah. Well, arc of instability because that part of the world is resource rich and is kind of like it's what's his name? Halfred Mackinder, the world island, and who controls the center of Eurasia basically controls the world. I mean, that's been known for, that's been a policy for the past 200 years or more,
Who controls the heartland?
Heartland.
Controls the world island.
Right.
That was how British and American naval geopolitical theorists in 1900 looked at this. They said, this is the world island. We're outside it. Yeah. We cannot let that integrate or it's going to crush us.
But the reason they knew that is because they had been dominating that part of the world for quite a long time. There had been wars fought, get back to the British Empire and all that kind of stuff. And of course, this isn't, Crimea. People are talking about Crimea now, but that's not the first Crimean war. Like, you know what I mean? There was a war fought over Crimea between the British and the Russians.
And French.
And French, 100 and, so it's plus ça change. More things change, the more they stay the same. But talking about the Pakistanis, like, I mean, Pakistanis or the Pakistani intelligence. Pakistan's run by a military junta, basically. The military has the most power in the country, and it's been that way and it's set up that way by the Americans going back, 30, 40 years. Pakistan was a kind of breeding ground for the jihadi terrorists that pushed the Afghanistan, or the Mujahideen stuff that fought the Russians in Afghanistan. That was the second time that had happened, basically, as well, in the past few hundred years. So the Americans, and again...
And the country is dependent on foreign aid.
It's dependent.
I think like Ukraine, it would actually collapse into bankruptcy.
Right.
They just left it alone.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, there was allegation, the claims that the deal that Trump supposedly, the tremendous deal, the tremendous ceasefire that Trump brokered between India and China just this week, yesterday, was primarily by putting pressure on the Pakistanis and using money. Apparently, $1 billion. $1 billion was in aid from an IMF loan. And America obviously has a lot of control of the IMF. Was threatened that it wouldn't be delivered unless the Pakistanis stop saying, "You bloody, 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 I'm going to bloody shoot down your bloody planes," and to calm down and to make peace, or to sign a ceasefire, agree a ceasefire with India. And that's what happened. But Pakistan, obviously, how long does it exist? 1950? What is that? 70 years? 70 years after British rule, country created for the Muslims that lived there to keep them away from the Hindus, the Indians. And it's been for all of that time before, and obviously it was British, part of the British Empire, and since then it was a British/American protectorate created. It was created by the British, basically, and handed off to the Americans. And especially, like I said, in the 70s and 80s, used by the Americans as a kind of breeding ground for jihadis, where they could, retreat back out of Afghanistan from fighting the Soviets, kicking the Soviets out of Afghanistan, retreat back into Pakistan. Was a lot and the Americans, again, with the help of the Saudis, etc., funding madrasas, religious schools, to produce a bunch of jihadi Muslims that then could be, funneled around the world wherever they wanted, and run by a military junta. So it's not exactly an ideal country type thing, in that sense. And the one chance that they had of
becoming a normal country
was thwarted. A couple of years.
Twice.
Benazir Bhutto.
Yes, her.
Benazir Bhutto was the first attempt, and they killed her. Again, America to blame for that to a large extent, by making sure that this extremist religious military junta held sway in Pakistan, and has done for the past 30, 40, 50 years. A few times that normal politicians in Pakistan attempted to take over or win elections. They got a lot of support. Everybody loved them, but they were killed, or they were, in the case of Imran Khan a couple of years ago, 2022, I think, he was impeached and put in prison.
After he publicly showed on TV in Pakistan a copy of the memo showing the US State Department saying, we want this guy impeached. So he was impeached for saying the US State Department's trying to impeach me because he had just flown to Moscow after the SMO started.
Right.
He wasn't allowed to do what the other 30 leaders did this week, bravely showing they can go to Moscow, stand with Putin.
But it was too important.
It was such an infringement for a Pakistani PM to do that. He was ousted within weeks.
And this is Al Jazeera, but it was kind of played down in the Western press, but it's like pretty much a fact that the US was behind forcing the removal. He was overwhelmingly popular in Pakistan and was elected as the Prime Minister or President?
PM.
Prime Minister, that's right. And then the Americans said, no, we don't like this guy. He's too friendly with Russia. He's too open to Eurasian integration and stuff. He would take Pakistan away from us. So we're gonna, we tried to kill him. He was shot, right?
He was shot once, yeah.
That didn't work. So we got the courts to conduct a case against him and put him in prison. So he's a British educated, speaks like an Englishman, all that kind of stuff. But he's a decent guy. And the Americans got rid of him, and the Americans and British, obviously, hand in glove, got rid of him, and thwarted any chance that Pakistan would become a normal country, let's say, because it's not a normal country when it's completely beholden or completely, its intelligence apparatus and its military government is, they're on the phone to the Americans, basically, the CIA, etc. And so that's the kind of thing where, is Trump going to turn around and go, well, that's not really nice to do that. We should let Pakistan be a normal country and do its own thing. We should stop all that shit we've been doing in Pakistan, and we should stop controlling their government. We should let that go. You're not going to do that, right?
Well, if you give him a cost-benefit analysis,
right,
and he goes, okay, we're hemorrhaging money here, and he needs someone in DIA or CIA to tell him, well, explain to me the trade-off. Like, show me the fucking figures. Like, is it good for us? Show me where that money's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't do that, he at least quietly to himself goes, I'm going to nix this one too.
Yeah.
But it's such a hot topic. It's kind of like South Korea. He broached that topic in his first term about bringing the troops home, and he got a fucking ton of shit. No. You don't understand. Don't touch that.
There's only so far you can go.
South Korea, Pakistan, Germany, probably. There are some red lines for the networked powers behind the throne.
Well, there's lots of red lines, and
they're letting him do his doge on, State Department NGO programs, but
they're reconfiguring that basically. But and like Ukraine, Russia, we haven't really talked about that, but Ukraine, Russia, what's this? I mean, I noticed it since they've been talking about it. They've been talking about it for about a month. It's been growing increasingly, but like all these European politicians, and Trump, obviously, but all the European politicians in particular, because they've been so belligerent anti-Russian and pro-Ukrainian, and now they're all screaming, ceasefire, ceasefire,
Yeah.
stop the killing, stop the killing. It's like, what happened? You've been telling us for 3 years that Russia was losing and Ukraine was winning, and now you're crying. I mean, in a fight between two people,
If you're winning,
if after they've kind of traded blows and all that kind of stuff, if one person goes, okay, look, just stop, who won? And the other guy still wants to beat that guy who sends just stop, beat his head in. Who's the strong? Who's won? Like, but you're not allowed to say that, right? And they can come out and aggressively demand ceasefires and the cessation of stop the killing and stop the victims and all that kind of stuff. But apparently that doesn't mean that they lost and that they've been lying for the past 3 years.
As someone put it, they're trying to weaponize the ceasefire. So they obviously didn't start it. But now that Trump's got the ball rolling and he's talking with Russia on a regular basis, they're trying to
turn it into a win.
Turn it into a win. And I think Putin pretty much explained it in his press conference yesterday after he sent home the 30 world leaders from the Victory Day meetings. He said, no, we're not interested. Here's why. We just gave them 3 ceasefires. We gave them one over Easter, and they breached it like 1,500 times. We gave them. We agreed to the 30-day ceasefire on targeting each other's energy infrastructure, and they breached it about 1,000 times. Some big, mostly small, but whatever. And then we gave them just now a 3-day ceasefire, and they literally went like that by sending 500 drones towards Moscow on day one of it.
Right.
And we shot them all down, or most of them. So he says, and it was clever because he knew this was coming. And meanwhile, the Euro boys are in Kiev saying 30-day ceasefire. Do it, and with an ultimatum to Putin, 30-day ceasefire or more sanctions. And Putin's like, he just ignored the sanctions part and he said, no, because I know what you'll do. He busted it wide open. He said, you're going to use it to rearm and regroup. You want the space. We have you pinned down and you want the space for a month to keep it going again. That's not what I'm talking with the Americans about. We're talking about addressing the roots of the conflict.
Yeah. So it's kind of bizarre that they're demanding, they want a ceasefire, and it shows their that it's a manipulation, that it's not sincere, not honest, because in any kind of conflict like that's been going on, like a pretty much a full-scale war that's been going on for 3 years, negotiations, you don't declare a ceasefire and then you don't declare a 30-day ceasefire and then have negotiations. You would try and at least kind of combine the two in a certain sense. You would say, okay, listen, negotiations, are there any point? First of all, is there any point in having negotiations? Because here's our minimal demands, minimal requirements for a cessation and a peace treaty. If I put those forward and you go, no, we're not doing that, then why would I have any negotiations with you? You've rejected in advance. You've made it clear that you reject my terms. And the point is that, again, it's like the guy who's the one who wants to keep fighting and the other one who's going, no, stop, leave me alone. The one who's saying stop, leave me alone doesn't get to dictate the terms, unilaterally, and doesn't get to reject out of hand the requirements or the needs of the other party in terms of stopping the conflict. They want a 30-day ceasefire today, and then afterwards we'll think about sitting down and having a discussion. It's like, no.
Here's how serious they are about it. These are the exact terms of the Kiev statement by Merz of Germany, Starmer of the UK, Macron of France, and Tusk of Poland. The legitimately democratically elected leader, whatever. Immediate 30-day ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. Start from Monday. They gave them the deadline Monday or something. Tomorrow. Russia withdraws from all occupied territory, including Crimea. Trump has already said Crimea's yours. What's the point in saying that after your backer has just whatever? Okay, a special tribunal to prosecute Russian war crimes, including Vladimir Putin himself.
Right.
Wait, payment of war reparations to Ukraine by Russia. That's the terms.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
But that's all my terms and not yours.
It
and
means
it's like
they know they want it to fail.
Yeah, on that basis, we want a ceasefire. It's like, no, that's not a good basis for a ceasefire where you get everything you want and I get nothing.
That's setting it up so that way you can have the headline of, look, we're trying to negotiate a ceasefire, and Putin just keeps rejecting our very generous offer. And I mean, that's the idea, is just to create the headline in order to create the reality that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
Because
their heads.
If you look at the actual parade, I didn't see any washing machines getting drawn by horse and buggy. I saw some very advanced, very big, very powerful weapons. There's no shortage there. So despite all of your bluff and bluster about how Russia is running out of ropes any day now, they're running out of everything. Like, very clearly they have plenty of everything. So much so that they had a frickin' parade. I mean, granted, it's, part of the tradition, but still, nevertheless, it's the fact that, like, they're having a parade with all of this stuff which they don't need for the front line.
Yeah. Putin also today, he dismantled their case and then put up his counteroffer, which is direct, unconditional, just there's no conditions at all attached, direct negotiations, Russian government, Ukrainian government in Istanbul, returning to where we dropped it in April 2022.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
This week, this Thursday, he says we're going to send someone Thursday. If you turn up, great. And he knows that's coy, because he knows that Zelensky has, in the meantime, banned himself from doing such. He's not allowed, according to his own decree, to negotiate with Russia directly. And so there we are. Putin's saying, yeah, we can go back, we can drop it, go back to where we left off in April 2022, when London intervened. I think he actually said that in his press conference.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to get resolved. It'll be interesting to see how they actually wiggle out of it and eventually accept the fact that, but it's going to be down to to Macron, those shitheads that met today in Kiev, or yesterday in Kiev, whatever. Macron, Stormer,
I think it was
Saturday
yesterday,
and Hitler's ideological
can we play
child.
This is getting so they did what they all do. They fly into Poland and they take a night train to Kiev because they're too scared of flying directly into Kiev. So this is a video of the boys on the train. This is getting a lot of traction.
They're on train there.
Let's not preempt it. Just watch it first and watch closely the hands of Merz and Macron. And his face. Okay. Okay.
It's just a snotty tissue.
Is it though? Is it the wild theory? This is getting a lot of traction today.
Yeah,
the wild theory is that that's actually a little paper packet of coke.
Baggy, yeah, could be.
And Mert said something like, I don't know,
a crack pipe.
A snorting,
not a crack pipe.
Spoon.
It was smaller. What is it?
They call it like a little snorting spoon. So it's got like a little, so you can like get a little bump, and then so that way you don't have to do any, cutting of the lines on the table.
What do you think? Is that mad? It's the talk of the town at the moment. There's a longer video. I've sent Scotty another version. I think it's longer because some of the antics before, like, they're way too palsy.
Macron looks a bit wired. Yeah.
Oh no, I think it's just the same. Play it again, though.
Just
Look at a longer
Look at
one.
Macron's face at the moment he swipes.
play it and
the
roll
thing.
it back and forward. Just play and then roll the scroller back and forward.
Watch Macron's face as he swipes. Is that like a...
Yeah, roll it back from there. Just like pull it, like slow. Can you pull it back and forward? And what do you call him? The other German guy. We'll just go back to where he.
They both put their hand over at the same time.
His is a little, little pipey kind of thing.
Oh, someone zoomed in and they ID'd it as something like that. It is a good fit.
I sent
Yeah, he
Scotty
definitely wanted to hide that.
a different one from AFP. It's a little bit better quality,
Oh, good.
slightly different angle.
It's a long walk. I'll be back
Oh, chummy.
Through my bathroom, huh?
It's through my bathroom, huh?
through Germany.
Yeah.
And then we made it to
The German
France.
bedroom and
We got
Stormers just joined them.
Yeah. So he doesn't know anything.
No.
About it. He wouldn't be into that kind
No.
of thing. He's too much of a.
Yeah, Macron's face.
face.
Like, if that's just a tissue, that is the strangest
Yeah,
reaction
yeah.
to realizing you left a tissue.
And then watch
And then in the
in the
pocket.
pocket. Oh, you would do that with the tissue, I guess.
You do it with a little baggie of coke as well.
Did he have a cold? Maybe there's other footage and he just has a cold. Okay, so that's on the way there, I think. This is Macron fairly welling Zelensky in Kiev. You remember the footage of them at the Elysee and holding
Oh,
the
yeah,
hands and staring.
Longingly.
This is the follow-up.
Yeah.
I love
Rub
you.
his head.
I love you so
Kiss him,
much.
touch the cheek, everything.
Touch the heart.
Touch my heart and my head. And I loved your coke. It was awesome.
Oh, the hands. The hands.
It's the hands.
Well, you have to allow for the fact that like Macron is as gay as Christmas, so he's obviously going to be that way with guys, especially like people that he fantasizes about, like Zelensky as a war hero and stuff.
As we say in Ireland, that is too sweet to be wholesome.
Mm.
That's
This is a picture actually taken on the train the same day, just a little while after that.
when the boys left, and Macron had no one but his thoughts.
Slava cocaine.
Slava cocaine,
Jesus.
There's something really creepy about
all those people.
all of them. Macron obviously was Rothschild Bank in Paris before he got shoehorned in, and the new German Chancellor was just confirmed last week. He is a former CEO of what? Maybe European division of BlackRock.
Right.
Before getting into politics, literally two banker types of two classically globalist American-ish banking houses.
Mm-hmm.
The definition of banking power are the leaders of Europe's two biggest countries. Oh, about the confirmation plot. So, not a plot. He's now chancellor, but someone pulled a stunt. So it should be a formality.
Mm-hmm.
In Germany, you get the votes, and then it corresponds with the seats your party has in parliament. They didn't have a majority, but they were in a agreed coalition with the Social Democrats or whatever. And it should have been pulled off without hitch. Everyone votes. He's confirmed. For the first time in post-war Germany, the first vote failed. A bunch of people said not here or no. And they panicked briefly because normally the normal procedure was you have to reconvene in 2 weeks. So they didn't want this hanging over the country for 2 weeks. So they did another one in the next 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was confirmed. Nice little protest there. Do you remember the Reichsbürger plot? It's from 2022. There were mass arrests in Germany. Maybe 30 people were arrested in a supposed plot to overthrow the German government, and their tactics were supposedly they were going to attack substations and cause a power outage. They'd amassed weapons, satellite phones. It seemed really serious, but very thin on the ground in facts. There's been not a word in the media about it since, except this week. The first convictions were made this week. 5 people were convicted for several years prison each. They're not named, and no further details about the evidence against them or their specific crimes. I wonder, though, there were at the time, some of them were high profile people. So one was an aristocrat with, a German nobleman who's supposedly the head of this plot. And one detail they gave was that a sitting judge was earmarked by the group to be the new Minister of Justice. That's a very specific claim to have. Like, you must have evidence for that,
Mm-hmm.
They still haven't published it. My cynical take is it's largely air, and maybe some people were saying things, and the worst crime is a thought crime. I wonder, though, because they did say there were also policemen, active duty soldiers, including paratroopers, special forces commanders that they'd arrested. I wonder if it was serious. If the Germans, they're still tagging along with the status quo, but underneath there is a kind of a growing sense of, because if there's one country that would snap back hard into the old ways, it would be Germany.
Yeah. And the Israelis, not that we like talking about the Israelis, we kind of have to. They've announced this week a plan to expand their war in Gaza. They haven't done enough, so they're going to expand their war in Gaza. They're calling up thousands of reservists or whatever to go in, and they're going to, because it's all thanks to Trump, right? Trump's idea of removing, getting rid of removing the Palestinians from Gaza to other countries. It's taking shape. The Israelis are pushing forward with it, right? So, their plan is to there's a line, I can't remember, they've got these different names for lines in the country where they've kind of sectioned it off, and they plan to, at least their plan is to push all of them into the very southern, like, say, quarter of Gaza, in advance of deporting them,
into Egypt, presumably, because that's right up on Egypt's border.
From Egypt to elsewhere.
Yeah.
If however that whatever there's these, hasn't been announced, but apparently there's some tremendous ideas about countries that are going to take them, going to take all the people. So you're talking about upwards of 2 million people, who will be pushed in, and of course at the same time they've taken control of all of the aid deliveries. Like, the UN has basically cancelled all of its participation in aid delivery to Gaza because it's being weaponized, basically being used as a way to, it's been restricted and all that kind of stuff. So they're not going to take part in something that's used as a way to actually starve Gazans into leaving, So their plan is to do what Trump said they were going to do, which was he's got countries who are going to take them, and so they need to put that into place, because the Palestinians aren't going to leave willingly, right? So you have to create a situation where they're starving, or it becomes some kind of humanitarian crisis where the whole world then stops whining about Israel being so genocidal and just realizes that, look, it's all done and we got to get the Palestinians out of there, otherwise they're all going to starve to death because Israel isn't allowing them to have any food, and nobody can do anything about it. And so yeah, take about 6 months. I think if they move something like 10,000 people a day, it would take 6 months every day. That's their plan. It's a genius plan, isn't it? So that's what's going on in Israel. And America's best friend. And everybody's best friend, apparently.
Yeah.
They're pushing forward with their final solution.
Yeah.
They just need some...
I want to say something like, it won't happen. It'll be stopped.
They need some...
It hasn't been so far.
The poor Israelis need some Lebensraum.
They need some Lebensraum from their guilty conscience.
No, they need Lebensraum just like that group in Germany in the late 1930s needed Lebensraum.
Will
Do
they
you
get
think
it?
the YouTube censor will have picked up on that? The AI censor will pick up on that one? Don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah. The Lancet's reporting this week that they estimate the real death toll in Gaza so far to be 186,000 people.
Probably at least.
Even The Economist thinks it's at least 110,000.
Yeah.
The Financial Times editorial board put out a statement, an editorial condemning this move by Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something? You know, I suppose it's so repellent, though. I mean, if they start enacting it, I think even your most authoritarian Westoids are going to be trying to distance themselves from it, or even start condemning it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a fucking Tory MP in Parliament who said, I'm done with this. I condemn Israel in the strongest possible terms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pro-Palestinian now. You know, 30 years of voting for sending Israel whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'm done. So that's the best hope we can have. They go so fucking apeshit genocidal on this that
something actually happens.
Yeah.
But the question is what?
Well, the Houthis are there. They can still do something. They talk a good game about hitting Israel back for destroying their airport. Can they do it? I don't know. The Iranians do give them a shitload of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I was never sure of that because I always thought, well, maybe that's just a talking point. You know?
Or the Houthis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've found the DIA does reports on the ships they seize in the Persian Gulf. It's coming from Iran, so it's not like homegrown.
That goes back to them fighting against the Saudis in 2015. When the Saudis were bombing, the Houthis were firing missiles, Iranian missiles at the Saudis, and the Saudis / Americans were flying from Saudi and bombing Yemen. So this is foreign minister. There's really foreign. Look at this headline. Hamas must be defeated. Israel backs US-led Gaza aid overhaul. Foreign Minister highlights Hamas's responsibility for the war, calls Iran the most dangerous state, and reaffirms strategic alliance with Germany. Which Germany would that be? Germany from, about 90
years ago?
90 years ago.
Yeah.
Speaking at a joint press conference with German Foreign Minister, expressed Israel's full endorsement of a new US initiative to ensure humanitarian aid reaches Gaza civilians without empowering the Hamas terror organization. So the whole narrative around this is that any aid that was going in was being stolen by Hamas, and they were eating it all themselves, right? So it's going to be, the humanitarian aid is going to be channeled through a private fund rather than traditional state mechanisms. It's designed to circumvent Hamas and direct aid to people of Gaza, he explained. But that's not actually what's happening. the idea so it's some private security company, i.e. basically just the Israeli government taking control over the aid, so that no international aid organizations are allowed will be allowed to distribute any aid. So I mean, that obviously means it leaves it wide open for them to just basically deny aid in order to, because they've said like their plan is they're going along with this plan to remove the Gazans, so, and now we're taking control of the aid, i.e. we're going to deny aid so that people starve enough so that they leave.
And go to Germany.
Yes.
The utter. Yeah. Yeah. The Germans are, I mean, the US is obviously the leader of weapons to Israel, but Germany's way ahead of number 3, which is Britain. Something like 80 billion euros worth.
Yeah, they owe it,
in 10 years.
They've got the guilty conscience.
They gave them eight Dolphin-class submarines, probably with nukes on them, free of charge. Merkel did that.
Yeah. Those people are ridiculous. Anyway, you got anything else? You done?
I'm done.
You done?
There was one interesting thing from Tulsi, who, they did another round of RFK document dumps. And she noted that there were cables going through Beirut with rumors that Senator Kennedy had been shot a month before it happened.
Huh? For what happened? Oh,
before
RFK.
Before RFK was assassinated. There were rumors circulating across the globe that Senator Kennedy had been shot 1 month prior to his true assassination date.
Interesting.
Yep.
The people of the light. You gotta love them.
Yeah.
Or not. Anyway, yes, on that note, we will leave it there for this week, folks. Oh, one last thing. What do you call an alien that gets uncomfortably close to you?
A close encounter of...
Space Invader.
The Macronian kind.
Space Invader.
Space Invaders. Anyway, on that hilarious note, we'll leave it there for this week, folks. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, commenting. We'll be back next week with an update on the large amount of
cocaine,
bovine excrement and cocaine that has been produced
in European capitals,
in Western government circles, which will be a lot. So you better stay tuned for that one. So we'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Can't stop the signal now.